Oh, wait, the error of the moon? Is the moon evil? Read the rest of the title. It is error for what? Days, weeks, months, and years on the Bible calendar. That's right out of the book of Jubilees, by the way. Shh, even in the Sefer Bible. We'll show you next, and really, First Enoch as well. Having already sealed up the position of the sun being the measure for days, weeks, months, years, Sabbaths of years, Jubilees, and the 4 seasons, we will now demonstrate this function has never belonged to the moon. But at the same time, let's discuss the moon's perfect and beautiful course. What is exactly what Yahuwah created it to do, in which it is a faithful witness. Yes. No, don't blame the moon. Okay, here it is in plain English, because we had another channel who said some things that we want to clear up right now. Moon, good. Moon, okay. Moon, holy, faithful witness. We love moon. We even love the people who use the moon as the measure in error. But the error we don't love. Neither does Yahusha, by the way. Error, bad. Moon, good. Moon, not bad. Error is bad. The error of men is really bad. That is what we address regarding this, and we've never called the moon itself error, nor does this title actually. It's only error when you use it in the wrong manner. Don't blame the moon for what men misread. That's all. Got it? Yes, that was said, and there you go. Look, people awaken in different phases. No pun intended. Well, maybe so. And at different paces. We're not all the same. We are all seeking the truth, however. Well, other than the idiots who just come in here to harass, of course. But theirs will be eternal damnation. They prove they can't even read a sentence or even a phrase or even a word they misdefine. It's amazing. However, we recently reviewed a video from a channel we've watched from time to time, whom we love very much and we've learned from. No one would expect we would agree on everything, and that's okay. We certainly don't expect that. However, we listened as he really seemed to struggle through this idea of the sun as the measure for days, weeks, months, and years, as even the Sefer Jubilees, by the way, says it does. We'll get there next video or in the next couple. It just does. So there you go. So it can't go back and then say the opposite in a fragment. And see, that's what they do. They take a fragment, missing all of chapter 72, where the sun starts the first day of the first month of the year. Every day, every month of the year. All 364 days of the year, the sun starts the day. It's there. And that's in the Sefer Bible, too, even though they made a change. They should not have a really continued error. They shouldn't. If they didn't read R.H. Charles, well, shame on them, because he corrected something there that's very clear. They're taking moon from the previous sentence and transposing it over. Well, the guy knew the Ethiopian G's. The Sefer doesn't. So they're not translators. So don't assume they are, because they're not. And I don't think we've ever read anything where they claim to be. They do conflict with themselves. And we see how that would confuse this other channel. Understood, for one. And, then we all have, the programmed paradigm by the rabbis and stupid scholars who can't see past Rabbi Babel and don't even know that they're Pharisees, which is so obvious. Many times these scholars can't really read nor test, so they just accept what Rabbi Wrong says. Well, Rabbi Wrong is wrong. Though that is their responsibility, in which they are typically grossly negligent, which is why they end up looking like scoffers, not scholars. Now, we will straighten that out in this video and the next two, and once and for all, prove this concept, which we've really already done, studiously. Just watch our Sabbath series, parts A through G, answers in Sabbath, parts 1 and 2, where we deal with the feast, the two feasts, atonement and Passover / unleavened bread, which are really one in dates. If one can do math to 7, just to 7, you just need to be able to count to 7. It's pretty clear. Parts 40 through what will be 45, it appears, of answers in 1st Enoch. The others will come on the heels of this one. We cover this all very well as well in Rest, the case for Sabbath. So it's not like we're just making a statement here or a claim and not supporting it. That would be a ridiculous thing to try to comment in such sense out of context, because you can't do that. Not with us. That is available in eBook free at restsabbath.org, so our content is free to everyone, folks. Check it out. Now, it's time for the moon. What does Enoch say about it? We're not going to cover all of it. We're also not going to chart this like the sun, because we don't want your head to spin and spin and spin and possibly fall off, because mine would. It is quite a course. And again, it's beautiful. It's perfect. Exactly as it is. It does not deviate, according to Enoch. It is a wonderful thing. The moon is awesome. But when man uses it as the measure for days, weeks, months, years, man is in error. The moon's never error, but using the moon as such is error. You'll see. According to National Geographic and every source we've found, I'm sure you too, if you've researched this at all, the moon cycle comes in at 29.5 days on average, not 30. Yeah, there are months where it is 30, but there are also months where it's 28, and we'll show you that. Over the 12 months, it's 29.5 on average. This means the moon can never equal a physical biblical month throughout the year. It just can't work. According to Enoch and Jubilees and science, which again is a 12 30-day months, is the Bible calendar with 4 intercalary days. Now that's not something anyone can dispute. We've covered that so many times. So the 4 intercalary days are added, so it's not 360, it's 364, one at the end of each quarter. The total biblical year is defined over and over and over, as we've covered, as 364 days, as you especially saw in, I think, the last video. And that most certainly is an exact, precise circuit of the sun, never the moon. Now, does the moon have a purpose? Yes. Is the moon bad? No. But that's the moon, not the sun. Got it? And the sun is 364 days, not the moon's 354. 364 does not equal 354. And when you have to do fuzzy math to try to get the moon to measure up to the sun as the measure, then and then you ignore that the sun even exists and has such measure, has such calendar already in existence, then we can't help you. See, the challenge for the moon in this regard, it is 10 days too short of the Bible year, period. Yet Enoch is clear, and science, the Bible year is exact, perfect, precise, and the moon is not exact, perfect, nor precise, not to the days, weeks, months, and years. It doesn't work. Again, it's not evil. There's nothing wrong with the moon. It didn't do anything wrong. It is a faithful witness, and it's perfect as it is. But it has a different cycle than the sun. That's all. It has a purpose we will discuss. However, it's not the sun. Can't be. And it wouldn't claim to be. Let's be real here. The moon never claims to be the sun. Got that? It didn't make that claim. Man did. It never tries to take the sun's place. It's not jealous of the sun. It just has a different course. That's all, which is too short and rather erratic to be used as a consistent measure when it does not match such measure. We even see things like eclipses. Someone tried to ridicule this channel. Oh, what about eclipses? And we saw that over and over and over and over, which means it's the same guy. We know who it is. But what about eclipses? Does Enoch not account for them? Actually, he does in the course of the moon. Ha! Sorry, but your ridicule is stupid once again. We just haven't gotten to that part. We will in the next video, don't worry. So, we're sorry that this proves rabbis wrong. We're not really sorry, but it's sad that that's the case. But who cares? Let's get to the truth. Can we handle it? Right? Was that Tom Cruise movie? It was really good. Not all are ready. We get that. But those that are will understand. And they're going to grab a hold of this. They're going to research it out. And many already have. This is science. But this is ancient fact, recorded in Jubilees and Enoch especially. For those wishing to then try to compare the Roman year to the Bible year, we aren't covering that at this point, and we won't in this series. We don't have time. We haven't gotten there because time, it's a 52-week series. Is that not long enough? Well, sorry. There's not room enough, as we still have too much to cover in the next 8 videos, but we'd love to get back to that, and we will. As you see, we keep coming back to this topic, and we keep supporting it, just as we do pretty much everything that we find. So, even Ophir, the original video, the first video that we ever did, we're still laying down proofs that continue to support it even more and more and more and more. It just can't get much more firmly entrenched, you think? And then boom, there's another video that entrenches it further. Do you have to agree with all 100 and whatever plus? No, you don't. But if you can't disprove it, it's something that you should at least consider. At this point, that is proven fact. Now, can you believe we're only 8 away from 52? In fact, we only have 8 videos left in the series. Wow. Praise Yahuwah. Before we get to Enoch, let's go to Jubilees for a minute. The book of Jubilees, again, labeled, used, called Torah by the temple priest in their writings found in Qumran. That's just a fact. So, we will get to the Sefer on this too in the next video or the one after, however it ends up breaking down. Don't worry, we're going to get to that. This is the R.H. Charles translation. That's the one we've used, and we choose it because it is far better than the Sefer version. Sorry, but it is. He was someone who actually was able to translate from the Ethiopic G's. He knew the language. The Sefer doesn't, we don't see that they make any such claim, and we wouldn't expect that they would, and that's okay. But that's why we published his version, and not that one, not that we would anyway. Basically, we find that they're, towing the line for Judaism on many things across the board. And that is a Babylonian, Persian infused religion from Samaria, never the biblical relationship. So we really find things suspect coming from there because they're inserting Judaism in multiple ways. Even the book of Jasher, which is one of the worst books ever. Over 100 occult accounts, very direct and very overt. Watch Answers in Jubilees, part 49, A through, I think it's F, and we test that. And we go through and we show you the 100 plus a call to counts right there, because some people were, how dare you say that? Oh, well, you know what? Here they are. So there you go. Now deal with it. So watch also Gog of Magog, origin of the word Jew, Psalm 83, war, answers in 2nd Esdras. All deal with that. Jubilees 6:36. For there will be those who will assuredly make observations of the moon. Okay, so is that bad? Well, no. Observing the moon is a good thing. But using it as then the measure to replace the sun, not a good thing. Here's why. How it disturbs the seasons. Moon, not for seasons. Boom. And comes in from year to year 10 days too soon. So now there is really nothing to debate on this. Jubilees records what science records. And also First Enoch. The moon cycles 354 days, and to use that course as the measure for days, weeks, months, years, and the 4 seasons, well, it disturbs the biblical calendar of 364 days, which specifically is the sun calendar, matching the sun's course perfectly, and not the moon. Not a combination of the sun and moon. No, that's nowhere to be found in Enoch, nor in Jubilees, nor in the Dead Sea Scroll calendars. I mean, we have those. So if we put them all together, it's very clear how they applied this knowledge. We have it from the ancient teachings, and it's changed, which tells you something's wrong. Now, the sun doesn't require the moon for these. It just doesn't, as it is the only measure. Oh, it has a witness. Someone even said, oh, but it takes 2 or 3 witnesses, therefore it must be, of course, it must be 3. Oh, it says 2, or. Learn the meaning of the word or. Okay, first of all. And second of all, the sun and the stars bring a perfect calendar, according to Enoch. I won't quote that exactly, but I don't know if we used that in this video, but we used it in the last video, where Enoch says exactly that. Well, stars are not one witness, and it's really inept to say that they are. Stars are many thousands of witnesses, hundreds of thousands of witnesses, if not more. Millions, billions, whatever number they want to put on it. I've never counted all the stars in the sky. But what we do know is there are thousands of witnesses. And there's really nothing to discuss regarding that. And the moon is even a witness. Imagine that. Yes, the moon is a witness. It observes the sun's course. It knows that the sun is the measure, and it would never claim to take the sun's purpose. So, again, this isn't hard. It's exactly 10 days too soon for the moon, and simply indisputable fact. Is the moon bad, though, for having the shorter course? No. Moon good. Remember, people using the moon for the wrong measure, bad. They're doing something in error. That's what Jubilees says, not moon bad. It doesn't say that. Yes, it's the people, the children of men, who are screwing this up. Indeed, just like the other channel, who, is relying on their rabbi babble, with very scant scriptures, in a very, very weak case that he seems to have left there. But in all fairness, it seems like he's holding on, but he's willing to learn. And that's, that's all anyone can ask. It's not the moon's fault, though, moon good. But what are those people doing? They're using the moon wrongly in error. I have to say this different ways so that it's understood by some. That's what it says, and regardless of the erroneous charge leveled by the other channel, well, we have never said the moon was bad, ever. And this isn't our doctrine. We didn't make this up. It comes to us from the ancient sources, from First Enoch, the first great prophet, with the first writing among men, from Moses and the angel of the presence, who began recording scripture from creation. Hello. If we're not teaching those doctrines, what are we teaching? So, And, oh yeah, Yahuwah's words, in fact. Yeah, because they came out of his mouth in some of these representations. So, who were they arguing with? Not us. If you don't think that they determine doctrine, but your church or group does, well, don't pretend you know Yahusha, and don't pretend that you're after the truth, because you're not. Again, we will address the Sefer Bible on this as well in the coming videos, where they changed Jubilees even to fit their Babylonian calendar, as well as Enoch, first Enoch, or at least continued error. Let's just say it that way, because they're, obviously the claim is that they're getting it from the Ethiopic. But Charles caught that, and he caught that they took the moon from the previous sentence and put it into the next sentence and replaced the sun. That's not good interpretation. And again, he understood the language. We don't. We're not fluent in Ethiopic G's. Are you? No, probably not. Very few are. But ours, Charles certainly was. Again, the Sefer Bible, we've never seen them make a claim that they are. For this reason, the years will come upon them when they will disturb the order. How do you do that? Well, we just read it in the previous verse, right? Who will disturb? The children of men will disturb, but with what? Using the moon as the wrong measure. See, when you read two verses like this, you put them together and have your context straight. The other channel didn't do that, unfortunately. And it's when they disassemble, concepts like this, context like this, it just leads to error. And, you're trying to justify error with more error. Well, you can do that, but let's not call it truth. It was never intended as such a measure, not the moon, but moon good, children following error bad. That's what Jubilee says. It never accuses the moon of doing anything wrong. And make an abominable day, hard word there, the day of testimony, and an unclean day, a feast day. Understand that, as we will show you, the moon does come into play in determining the time of the day of certain feasts. It is important for that measure because they start at sunset in some cases. You will never get to that right day, however, without the sun. The moon would come in 10 days too soon every year, and there is no correction to that. Trying to add an entire leap month to the calendar. I mean, no, not a leap day, like they do in the Roman calendar. No. A whole month has to be added to reconcile the moon to the sun. And why would you reconcile the moon to the sun? The sun's already the measure. The stars are its witness. Operating in the same vein. They operate with the sun as the measure. The moon observes it all and is a witness, but is not the measure. So, even though they started at the evening in those three feasts, in those cases, again, the other four begin at sunrise, so you're still at 4 to 3 if you want to look at it that way. But sunset would be still the wrong day if you follow the moon. 4 days, months, weeks, years, period. You can't follow the moon for any of those measures. Now, we all know fully reconciling the calendar is still a work in progress. But someone will figure this out soon. We firmly believe in these days of increasing knowledge. It may not be us, but we pray for that day because it's time to know these things. There are elements we have been shown in this restored knowledge and hopefully helpful to others, but others are getting it to even some, before us. They get it. And we weren't first. In fact, we've seen different, even just blogs or whatever, where there were folks that were already reading Enoch and Jubilees before we ever came out with these videos, and they were saying very similar things because they can read. And they will confound all the days. Got that? All the days. Why? Well, because the moon, as a measure, To start the day is wrong every day, period. So every day's wrong. The moon itself is right for its course and purpose. But you don't replace the sun with the moon and call that logical. It's ridiculous. The holy with the unclean, and the unclean day with the holy, for they will go wrong as to the months and Sabbaths and feasts and jubilees. Got it? There you go. This is all starting with those following the moon period as that measure. You can follow the moon. The moon's course is beautiful, but don't call it the sun. That's not good. It is the only measure mentioned and rebuked as error in this fashion. Is the moon error generally? No, the moon's course is wonderful. Following it for a purpose it was not intended, which again is not the moon's fault. The children of men, they will go wrong. In what? For months, every month is wrong on the moon. As 29.5 days, well, it's not 30 days, is it? No, comes in 10 days too soon. It's wrong for the first month, and all 12 months for that matter, pretty much, because it already starts on the wrong footing. Sabbaths or weeks, Sabbaths are always every 7th day period. Tested, we did in 2021. 22 of 52 Sabbaths were disturbed by the moon cycle. If one tries to use it for that wrong purpose, I mean, just don't use it for that purpose. You're not supposed to. No surprise, it's error in that sense. Again, moon is not wrong. Men are. I love my car, but if I try to drive really fast off a cliff, it's not going to become an airplane. Just not. Don't try this at home. That's our point with the moon. You can't make it fit. It's just a car. In this analogy, a lovely car, serving its purpose as a car, but it will never fly. Yeah, we know the moon flies. Yes, duh. There'll be a blogger who will probably try to point that out, because it's all he can do is go through and try to pick things, pick, because he's a demon-possessed, harassing idiot. Anyway, feasts, well, again, the moon determines the time of day for some feasts, but you'll never get to the right day with the moon as the measure for months and days. You won't. You'll be 10 days too soon. You'd be wrong even on the day and started at the wrong time. As far as the 4 feasts start at sunrise instead of sunset. Even if the Hebrew word for month was exactly the word for moon, this would not change this dynamic. Yeah, the word derives from that, but it doesn't mean that the moon is the measure. This is the kind of fiction being propagated by foolish rabbis who wish to deceive us all. Thus, even though it is for feasts, it would be wrong as a measure for the date. You can't arrive at the date by the moon accurately. And Jubilees, basically, Sabbaths of years, 7 times 7, or 49. That's 7 years. And then you have Jubilees, which sometimes 7 or 49 total. Yes, the celebration is the 50th in Scripture, but a Jubilee is 49 years. 7 sevens. That's how Scripture works. Just like Shavuot, if you want an example in precedence, 49 plus 1, that's the counting for the celebration. Following the moon for years leads to error every year, all 49 years, because it was not created for that purpose. The sun was, and that's what we follow. Yes, one can try to apply a 13th month every few years to reconcile. We're going to cover that in the next video and obliterate it because you're never going to find it anywhere in Scripture. You won't find it in Enoch. It's not there. Enoch says it's 12 30-day months plus 1 intercalary day at the end of each quarter. That is what's added. That is the reconcile, the intercalary days. Never an attempt to reconcile the sun with the moon, which is not necessary. It's a false paradigm, and you just don't do it. So, We'll get to that. We'll also get to the false god that they name that month for in the next video. And you'll be disgusted at the origin of that name as well. For this reason, Yahuwah, he said this. He said the moon is not the measure, period. Do we take his word? Or would you prefer some scholar, teacher, or even another YouTube channel who knows better than Yahuwah? Might want to rethink that. I, Yahuwah, command and testify to thee, that thou mayest testify to them, for after thy death thy children will disturb them. I think he's talking to Noah here, who disturbs, by the way, well, not the moon. The moon doesn't disturb anything. It's perfect as it is. Moon, good. People using the moon as the wrong measure, as Judaism and Messianic Judaism do. They use the Babylonian calendar. They're not using the Bible, and they're trying to justify it, and that's sad. They disturb the biblical calendar by misusing the moon. The moon doesn't, because it never makes such claims. Men do in error. So that they will not make the year 364 days only. Got that? That's the solar year, period, and only the solar year. Only the sun fits that measure. Yahuwah's not suggesting a leap month here, is he? He's being exact in his language, because sun, match, exact match. Moon, wrong answer. Thanks for playing. Pretty simple. And for this reason, they will go wrong as to the new moons. Now, that word is months. That is months, not new moons. There's not a biblical word for new moons. 20 times that you will find it in the modern Bible canon, it is month. It's not new moon. It is a misrepresentation, likely by these same who even changed Enoch and Jubilees to fit their doctrines, which are false. It said months, Sabbaths, feasts, and Jubilees. Got that? That pretty much covers it, right? Now, we have new moons for the same word. It's months. It's not new moons. There's no designation in Hebrew. It just doesn't exist. Not in the Bible. This is R.H. Charles's fraudulent assertion in this case, because that guy wasn't perfect, but he was a good translator. His translations are very good. But he's also steeped in Judaism, and it's a problem in his thinking. That's why he took over 100 different footnotes from the rabbis and their writings, like the Talmud, Midrash, etc. We took that stuff out because that's not Bible, and we're not using it. And seasons, that's Moedim, appointed times, or the feast, just like the previous paragraph. He's repeating himself. And Sabbaths and festivals. Festivals being Jubilees, the 49 plus 1 for the celebration, but 49 years. That would be consistent there. And they will eat all kinds of blood with all kinds of flesh. No, we are still not supposed to be eating the blood of animals today. You know, Paul did not perform a miracle and change the physiology of every unclean animal into clean. I mean, that would be a ridiculous claim by anyone. Yet that's what scholars tell us. They're stupid. And he would never declare such a ridiculous thing, nor does he say he removed the life from the blood of animals. That's why we don't eat it. It has life. They don't even understand. It's amazing how little scholars can think and reason because their understanding of the Bible is many times less than basic. Let's go back to Enoch now. Does he say the same thing as Jubilees here? Well, yes, he does. In chapter 74, regarding the moon course, we're not going to cover it all like we did the sun, and for good reason. We don't need to. Enoch covers the moon phases, and read those. They're awesome, and test them for yourself. We don't have time in the series to go there. We aren't doing that. He writes in verse 4, and in certain months she, the moon, alters her settings. Now again, she's supposed to do that. It's not a bad thing. It's just bad to follow that to try to figure out days, weeks, months, and years. That's all. And in certain months, she pursues her own peculiar course. Who gave her this course? Yahuwah did. It's a good course. It's okay, everyone. The moon doesn't practice rebellion or witchcraft. This is what she is supposed to do. But all the more reason she's not the measure for these things. She differs from the sun, which is a good thing, but not good for the measure of days, weeks, months, and years, for which she was never intended, and she doesn't claim so. Now, again, we're not going to chart the moon's course as we did the sun. Believe me, your head would spin. And it's just unnecessary to go there for now and doesn't make for a good YouTube video. If someone wants to do that, do it. Great, wonderful. If the other channel wants to do that, well, why don't you start by charting the sun, because you haven't done that. You covered Jubilees and Enoch, and you didn't chart the sun. And you didn't chart the moon, yet you criticized this channel essentially for not charting the moon because we're not foolish. We're just not going to do that to people. And yet then we can't possibly understand the moon's course because we didn't chart it like we did the sun. Well, you didn't chart either. So why don't you go charting and stop throwing stones from your glass house? How about that? This is what we get so many times in criticism. And it's a shame that channel led there because we've supported them for many years. We've even sent many people to their channel. We won't anymore. But do we understand this at all? I mean, do we? Well, I think we've explained it better than probably anyone. I don't know, but that's what many people have even said. It's a lot to absorb. There's no doubt about that. But that's a false paradigm. But they covered Enoch and Jubilees, and they didn't do this. We did. So we are more qualified to draw conclusions than they are in that sense. And instead what they do is placate Rabbi Babel and try to justify the moon still when we have crushed it in debate. There's just nothing to be had. We haven't seen anything as clear as the charts we've created on this. Again, they have no charts. So before throwing stones, you better fortify your glass house because you're not going to look real good as we go through these things and show where you're placating very poor scholarship. So, still in 74, verse 12 here. And the sun and the stars bring in all the years exactly. Oh, wait a minute. That is how many witnesses? Well, the sun is one, right? And the stars are, how many thousands, millions, billions? I don't know what number. Pick whatever one. Who cares? I haven't counted them all, but it's a lot, right? So it's a lot more than 2 or 3 witnesses, is it not? So then to say, well, but if the moon's not there as a witness, then you can't say that it's 2 or 3 witnesses. That's just stupidity. And we had someone try that in comments. We know who it probably was. We'll address the Sephir's very poor translation of this, taking knowledge backwards in the next video, as well as causing false statements in Enoch. And that's what's really poor when they do that. It's a shame because we love those guys and we have supported them as well. We've sent people to buy their Bibles, in fact, but we don't carry it on this channel, and we don't because we considered that, and we even contacted them, and they gave us the information to become a vendor for them. And we chose not to because as we tested it, we found a whole bunch of Judaism infused. And we don't like that because we're not trying to be Jews. If you are, go follow the Sefer. It's fine. You can do that. We're just not going to do that. The Bible never says to become a Jew. In fact, the word Jew is fraud. Can't even be rendered in the Bible languages in which it was written. Neither ancient Hebrew, nor Greek, nor Aramaic, nor Latin, nor Old French, Old German, or Old English. So, to use the term is fraud. so that they do not advance or delay their position by a single day unto eternity. They're perfect. Got it? Oh, he'll tell us. But complete the years with perfect justice. Wow. In 364 days. Are we reading this? The sun and stars, which have the same timeline and are witnesses together far more than two or three, they follow the same timeline year in and year out. They complete the years with perfect justice. No leap days, no leap weeks, and no leap month needed, period. Yet you cannot say that of the moon. And trying to reconcile the moon to the sun, where does Enoch ever say you have to do that? The only reconciler he talks about is the intercalary days, and they're already in the count for 364, and part of the sun's course, actually. You have to add a leap month every few years to propagate the Babylonian lunar calendar. A whole month! And, oh, by the way, some will say, well, sometimes it's every 2 years, and sometimes it's every 3 years. No, it should be every 3 years. You're screwing it up again if it's only every 2, because it's 10 days off every year. So it doesn't work, no matter how they try to force it. So the calendar's perfect at 364 days, the solar year period. Never the moon, which is 10 days too short. That's it. Did we see this too? The sun and stars do not advance or delay their position by a single day unto eternity. That is a measure that is not chaotic, that you can count on for the calendar. Yes, there's one day in Joshua, which serves as the exception, as sometimes things like that do in Scripture, but this is fact. Understand, they do that with the flood too. Well, no, it says, all with the breath of life perish. Well, first of all, Nephilim don't have the breath of life, so you've already missed one qualifier in reading that. Second of all, you forgot the ark? Oh, wait, you mean Yahuwah said to build an ark? Noah built an ark. People that were on the ark, 8 people, plus all of the animals that were there, all survived the flood, according to every Bible account, over and over again. Yet you forget that and say, oh no, everybody perished, so everybody died in the flood? Well, to read it that way, you would have to. It's reading out of context. And we get this kind of useless, gnat-straining debate all the time on this channel, and that's why we shut it down. Because those people are not interested in the truth. Let's just be honest. We know who many times it is, and they're here to agitate. And we just shut that down. So this leaves no room for consideration of the moon, even when the Sefer changes it and leaves error in place, disagreeing with itself and other passages on the same sun and moon function and course, especially all of chapter 72. A whole chapter versus a fragment where you change the word sun to moon. Doesn't work. Sorry. Or, better termed, you continued the error of very poor translation, taking the word moon from the previous sentence and putting it into that one where it doesn't belong. Enoch isn't playing around here. He tells us again, and he tells us again a different way. And now he maths this out. First, let's go back to the biblical year and review that. That's the course of the sun. And then let's go to the very next sentences, which are the moon, which is a clear contrast where the Sefer puts the moon and at 2 different courses. So now there's, 2 moons? Doesn't work. It just doesn't. And they should have caught that. The biblical year, which is the solar calendar year, calculates as such. Verse 13, in 3 years, there are 1,092 days. So he takes it over 3 years. So that means there's no leap year in there, because what's that? 364 days each year. No leap days, no leap weeks, no leap month in 3 years. Oh, wait, no, he takes it further. Here's 5 years, 1,820 days. That's also 364 days each. Not leap, not there. Doesn't exist. Oh, no. He goes further and he says, and in 8 years, It's 2,912 days. Oh, wait. Divide that by 8. What is it? 364 days each. No leap days, weeks, or months needed. Charles didn't understand why Enoch would do this redundant math. In fact, he makes a note of that, and there's nothing wrong with him saying such in his footnotes. It is kind of peculiar, it seems, except for, see, he missed the point. It proves there are no leap events. That's why Enoch did this in the Bible calendar, period. It is brilliant to describe it this way, because now you have 8 years and not a single leap month in the 8 years. Doesn't exist. The year remains 364 days every year. And see, the moon would have to add a leap month every third year. You got 8 here, and it doesn't work. So we don't need to guess, though. Let's continue to read. Now we'll go to the course of the moon and do the math. Oh, no, Enoch does the math, not us, and it's right there. Verse 14, the next verse. For the moon alone, the days amount in 3 years to 1,062 days. Well, that's not 1,092, is it? No, that's 30 days behind, requiring adjustments that Enoch says never happen and never apply. He'll even tell you this is wrong for the year. No, the moon is not wrong, and he doesn't say so. It's perfect. But using it wrongly is the problem, as the Pharisees of Judaism do. And in 5 years, here we go, she falls 50 days behind. Do we adjust the calendar to fix that? No, because the sun is the measure. He doesn't say to adjust your calendar, to try to make the moon fit the sun. Why would you, when the sun's already perfect? And are the stars, so are the stars as well. Now, Enoch said that, not me. He is noting the moon is error, falling 50 days behind in the biblical year of 364 days over the 5-year period. That's not just a little wrong, by the way. We're not talking about one leap day like the Roman calendar to adjust, or whatever every 4 years. No. This is a whole 30 days every 3 years. It falls behind. But notice, it's still falling behind after 5 years, which means it wasn't adjusted. Get that? It wasn't. There was no leap month to adjust it in 5 years, folks. Verse 15, and in 5 years there are 1,770 days, so that for the moon the days in 8 years amount to 2832, again divided. Get out your calendar, divide that by 8. What is it? 354 days, which is what? She falls behind to the amount of 80 days. Enoch does the math for us. You don't even need a calculator. All the days she falls behind in 8 years are 80, 10 per year, exactly what he says, exactly what Jubilees says, and exactly what science says, but there's no adjustment to rectify this to the sun, because it isn't needed. The moon doesn't need to be reconciled. It's perfect as it is. Don't mess with it, and don't follow the error of the Pharisees. So here we have the moon compared to the biblical year, in which the moon falls 80 days behind in 8 years. There's 8 years there with no adjustments needed, because the sun perfectly fits this measure as 364 days. Doesn't need adjustments. However, the moon fails in this regard. Not because she's bad. Moon good. People misusing the moon, bad. Error. Over 8 years here. You got it. Enoch is brilliant. It requires no reconciles except the 4 intercalary days, which are called reconciles, multiple times in their passages. And we're going to I think we already covered that, but if not, we'll get to it again. Already included in the 364. It's there. So the moon falls behind, but it's okay. The moon is not to be used for days, weeks, months, and years, but her course is perfect as it is. Don't mess with it. Don't adjust it. It doesn't need to be adjusted. Yes, it's complex, but perfect indeed. Now, there's no reason to chart it spending many days on that when she is simply not the measure, very clearly stated by Enoch many times over, as well as Moses in Jubilees. And again, we have the temple priest calendars, which show you their interpretation of Jubilees and Enoch very obviously, and the whole of Scripture for that matter. Because if Scripture went against it, the sons of Zadok, the temple priests, the holy ones, they would know. See, they would know. And we follow their teachings, the ancient teachings on this channel. And that's where we're taking you back to the ancient teachings, which have precedence and foundation as Bible canon and Scripture, whereas, a modern scoffer claiming to be a scholar, forget about it. Who cares? Still in chapter 74, now go to verse 17. And the year is accurately, we all know what that word means, completed in conformity with their world stations, those are the intercalary days, and the stations of the sun. Now, that's the world stations, 4 intercalary days, plus the sun for a total of 364. There you go. Another way of saying the same thing, there you go, which rise from the portals through which it, the sun, rises and sets 30 days. Again, R.H. Charles is accurate in this translation, as if you try to insert the moon there, oops, you have conflicts. The passage would be wrong. You force an error, especially since they're 30-day months. Those are sun months, not lunar months, which would have to be 29 and a half days in total over the year, on average. Did we not already read over and over in chapter 72, where we charted the sun's course, the first law of all the heavenly luminaries, that includes the moon, by the way, that's a luminary, is the sun rising, period. That's the first. It rises first to start the first day of the year in the first month. So beginning of the day, month, and year, and the week is obvious too from that, because of course that's 7 days. Enoch told us that first there goes forth the great luminary, the sun. At sunrise, when it rises in the eastern portal, the first day of the first month of the first year. I mean, over and over and over and over. How many different ways can he record this for them to get it? Well, the fact is, the Sefer Bible has changed or taken backwards some of these things to erroneous translation that, again, R.H. Charles caught because he understands the Ethiopic G's. Again, we don't see where they claim to be. But I repeat this to set up the next verse, which is about the moon. Let's see. Chapter 73, verse 1 in 1st Enoch. And after this law, well, what did we just cover? This is 73. You go back to 72. The whole chapter is what? It's about the law of the first luminary, the greater luminary, the sun. The first one defined, and we are, just right here following that in chapter 73. Enoch is so clear. I saw another law dealing with the smaller luminary, which is named the sun. Now, understand, the sun is first here. The sun is said to rise first on the first day of the first month of the year. We know this. And every day of the year in 1st Enoch is driven by the sun. The creation account places the creation light on day 1, first called the daytime by Yahuwah. Again, he's the expert, and the sun created during the daytime, first on day 4. Repeating itself. This demonstrates the moon is second in all of these. In Genesis, and in Jubilees, and in Enoch, and in the Dead Sea Scrolls. What is there to discuss here? Nothing. We love the moon. Moon, good. It is not smaller, though. That's another thing. Let's correct this. It's not smaller in the sense of size, because that can't be a great translation, and that's okay. As it is the same size as the sun. We'll show you those scriptures in the end here as well. But it is less significant in brightness, for one, and also in purpose, as it is not the measure for days, weeks, months, and years, or for the 4 seasons. That all belongs to the sun. So it's less significant. Its purpose for very important, tasks, no doubt. But it does not compare to the sun in significance. That's all. And why does it have to? Why? Why do we have to elevate the moon to the purpose of the sun? Why do that? That is a religion. That's not Bible. Does it come first in any sense? No, never. So why would we apply it as first when it's not first? That's just fact. We love moon. Moon good. We read in Jubilees 2:9, and Elohim appointed the sun to be a great sign on the earth for what? A very specific purpose in which one can never attribute to the moon, period. For days, for Sabbaths, and for months, and for feasts, and for years, and for Sabbaths of years, and for Jubilees, and for all seasons of the years. And Genesis agrees with this. That's not the moon. And even the Sefer Bible actually says this in their translation. We're going to cover that. So they conflict because they say this and then they say something else. And yet they have chapter 72 where you can see the course of the sun starts every day, 364 days a year. And then they go and replace the word sun with the word moon or continue such error either way. And we'll show you that in the coming videos. The Bible year is laid out, again, over chapter 72, the whole chapter, verse by verse, in order. We covered every month and charted it. Here it is, month by month, even day by day. You can see where it begins with sunrise out of the eastern sunrise gate period in all of chapter 72. Not once the moon, all the sun. Equaling 364 days in the year, the solar year period, and the biblical calendar period. Why would anyone come up with a stupid system to reconcile the moon to force it into trying to be the sun? That doesn't even make sense. When the sun already fits in every way, it doesn't require that. It doesn't change the fact that the sun is the measure, even when you do such. But again, there's no need to. Not for days, weeks, months, and years. Not for the 4 seasons, which are all driven by the sun. The moon doesn't fit this, even with leap years. Doesn't matter. It still doesn't fit because it would have to leap days, really, within the year in order to be consistent. And it's not because it's supposed to be perfect. It operates with perfect justice. It's supposed to be exact because the year is. The moon is not in this regard, but moon good. Its path is exactly what it's supposed to be. It has to match every year, or it's just not that measure. That's all. The moon's path is fine. Let's go backwards, though. Enoch does not just talk about this in the book of Heavenly Luminaries. Now, this is fascinating, which is also called the astronomical book. He lays this out first in chapter 41, 30 chapters earlier, with, of course, more detail later where he describes the full courses. But he's super clear here, even earlier, in a quick blush, what he was shown. If you read the Sefer Bible, it seems like a totally different passage in these chapters in this particular case. It's amazing. I don't understand that at all, and I'm not even going to try to reconcile it. They need to, because it's error. It's already wrong. It doesn't fit the whole of 1st Enoch. It's out of context, and they need to fix it. So, starting in verse 5, and I saw the chambers of the sun. Yes, sun is there. It has to be. And a major error in the Sefer, because it omits the sun. Whoops. And moon, whence they, yes, they is 2, proceed. And whither they come again, and there, yes, again, 2 or more, glorious return, and how one is superior to the other. Again, that language completely changed in the Sefer, and nonsense. The sun is superior to the moon in purpose, just fact. Moon good, remember, nothing wrong with moon okay. And their stately orbit and how they do not leave their orbit, and they add nothing to their orbit, and they take nothing from it. Wow. And they keep faith with each other. Now see, the moon is a faithful witness, and it has a course. And what did Enoch just tell you? That course doesn't change. It doesn't get reconciled. You don't add anything to it, not a leap day, week, or month. You don't have to, because it's not the sun. It's not the measure for days, weeks, months, years, and it doesn't need to be. So why try to force it into being something that it's not? It's a faithful witness, not a rebellious, unfaithful witness. Enough is some men, of course, do this. They try to put the moon in the sun's place. Yet the moon would never do that. So don't accuse the moon. Don't blame the moon. In accordance with the oath by which they are bound together. See, they even have an oath together, folks. This is a covenant. Even our sky operates in a covenant. Yet some think we don't even have law anymore. We're under a new covenant, and that new covenant abides by no law at all. Do what thou wilt, right? Well, that's the Satanic Bible. That ain't our Bible. So we're going to go into that more in the next videos as well. Verse 6, and first the sun goes forth. This is 30 chapters earlier. And traverses his path according to the commandment of Yahuwah of spirits. What did Yahuwah command? That the sun is first, is the measure for days, weeks, months, years, period. And mighty is his name forever and ever. Once again, sun first, even in chapter 41. Again, we know by daily definition from Enoch, chapter 72 especially, the sun rises to begin the first day of the first month of the first year, and all days within. All 364, perfect match. And all days, months, and years, as well as weeks, must continue that pattern. You don't have one day beginning with the sun and another with the moon. Doesn't happen, right? And none begin with the moon, period. Verse 7, and after that, after the sun, or second, next, right? Sun first, moon second. Moon good, still, but second in timing. That's its place. It's okay to be second. I saw the hidden and the visible path of the moon, and she accomplishes the course of her path in that place day by day and by night. The one holding a position opposite to the other before Yahuwah of spirits, which means they're witnesses to each other. They're in an oath together. The moon is not the sun. It's opposite. There you go. And they give thanks and praise and rest not, for unto them is their thanksgiving rest. Again, moon good, sun good, both good. They praise the creators, but the sun is the measure for days, weeks, months, and years. And the moon is not offended by that, so you shouldn't be either. Skip to verse 9. 8 tells us, moon good. Got that? Because the moon is good. Verse 9, for no angel hinders, and no power is able to hinder, for he appoints a judge for them all. So why would man try to hinder something that angels and no power can? Because that's what they're doing. They're disrupting, exact word from Jubilees, the biblical calendar, by trying to force the moon. So what is this? For what? For the luminaries, all of them. But the greater luminary is the sun. And then it says what? And he judges them all before him. Who? Well, the sun is the leader of all luminaries. Now let's go to chapter 78 in 1st Enoch. It begins discussing the two great luminaries. It's recapping here. It starts with the sun, as it always does. We don't have time to read it all, so we're not going to do that in this video. We won't get to that even in the series. But man, I mean, Enoch has said enough, has he not? We've covered so much on the sun already. Enoch doesn't leave this up for debate at all. And those trying to debate on the other side, trying to defend the moon, they're taking Enoch's words out of context. They've got Enoch going against his own words, and that's already failed. From verse 6 on, it covers the moon here. So we're going to go to verse 15 to start, but read it all. And 3 months she, this is the moon, makes of 30 days. Yes, there are 3 months that are actually 30 days, but not all year. And notice what happens next. And at her time, she makes 3 months of 29 days. That's 6 months of the year, right? We're going to show you the next verse here. We'll show you the next 6 months for a full year. Now, these are not biblical months. Yeah, there's 330, but they're not biblical. They're disruptive because 3 are not. There's nothing wrong with this. That's the moon's course. It just cannot be used as a measure because it's not consistent in this regard for days, weeks, months, or years. That's all. The biblical calendar is only 30-day months, period, with 1 added at the end of each quarter, 31 every quarter, with the intercalary days. That's all. There's no other way to read it. See, 3 months at 30 days and 3 months at 29 days. Well, what's that? Well, average it out, and that's 29.5 average, exactly as we covered from National Geographic, from Jubilees, from Enoch. It matches scientifically. It's exact. In 4000 BC, mind you, Enoch knew this. And so does Jubilees in 1700 BC or so. So this ain't new doctrine, folks. This is the ancient one and the way we're supposed to read Scripture. The strange new doctrine is the new Babylonian lunar calendar being called the Bible calendar in error. It has always been a plague to the Bible, as the Babylonian mystery religion always has. Today we call it modern Judaism, rabbinic Judaism, in which she accomplishes her waning in the first period of time, again, the first half of the year. That's the period being said here, because he tells you, we'll see. A lunar year, not a solar year, though, so it's the first 6 solar months, which are not actually a calendar of any value. Got that, except for knowing and understanding the course of the moon. Otherwise, it's wrong to the biblical year, which he said over in verse 364. So basically, I mean, Enoch said this multiple times, multiple ways. It's so clear. And in the first portal for 177 days, there he goes, nailing it down, 6 months to the moon, its pattern, 6 lunar months. Well, multiply that by 2, 170, you're getting 354 days. So that's the lunar year, not the solar year, and not the biblical year of 364 ever. It's short, and there's no reconcile here for the moon, because we don't reconcile the moon. That's nonsense. Verse 16, and in the time of her going out, she appears for 3 months, 30 days each, and for 3 months she appears of 29 each. Again, that's the second 6-month period, basically, and the same pattern, 3 30-day months and 3 29-day months for an average of 29 and a half days per month. When you average it out over the year, and the year's 10 days too short to be the measure for such things. It's perfect as it is, but it is not to be used as the measure for days, weeks, months, or years. Now, this is interesting. While we're here, let's turn to chapter 80, verse 2. And in the days of the sinners, the year shall be shortened. Now, that's interesting. Think about this. This hasn't happened yet. All right, this is in the last days when he says the days of the sinners. It remains, by the way, when they say the days of the Gentiles in the New Testament, I know the JWs try to take that as meaning, oh, well, that's the church. That's just utterly stupid, because it tells you that they're the sinners. Those Gentiles in that passage are the sinners. It's just nonsense. But anyway, so this remains prophecy, but this is very similar to a passage in 2nd Esdras and Revelation, really. We're not going to go there, but we'll reference it. But if you watch Answers in 2nd Esdras, we cover both. In fact, many misunderstand when Messiah says, if the days were not shortened, even the elect would be deceived. That's just off the top of my head. It's a rough wording, but close. Yet, that's misapplied by many. He means the days are literally shortened. See, he's quoting the book of Enoch here. However, the years are still years, at least, for that time frame. Daniel sets forth a 7-year tribulation, and so does Revelation, which was written after Messiah ascended. So it still remains 7 years, 3.5 and 3.5 for the Great Tribulation. That's still the measure in Revelation, so it doesn't change. So you can't say that he shortens the years. It doesn't say the years. He says the days. The days become shorter because something really happens with the calendar in the very end. We're not there yet, though who knows whether or not we're moving toward that and things are starting to. Don't know. Skip to verse 4. And the moon shall alter her order and not appear at her time. It's not just the moon, so don't blame the moon. Relax. And again, this is prophecy. This has to happen. It's supposed to happen. And again, even Messiah said so. Verse 5, and in those days the sun shall be seen, and he shall journey in the evening on the extremity of the great chariot in the west. So the sun's coming out at the wrong time. The moon her order's messed up, and shall shine more brightly than accords with the order of light. So even the intensity of light is going to be off with the sun. Those days are coming. And again, we aren't there yet, but this is what will happen soon. He goes on to say the stars, you can read, and please read this all. We just can't cover it all. The stars will also alter their courses, and again, we see the whole sky changes. Fascinating, and really, I mean, you watch this play out in the book of Revelation as well toward the end. It's just such a wonderful thing that we're seeing this in 1st Enoch, written in 4000 BC, before the flood. Wow. So what do we find about the moon? It has a more erratic course, not good for measuring things such as days, weeks, months, and years. That's not a problem. Just don't use it for the measure. It's not consistent for that, though it's consistent in its course, but every year it falls behind the sun by 10 days. Now, we proved that already, but what we see with the moon is just more affirmation of the same. The moon is incredible. Such a beautiful course it has. Harder to understand, sure. It is awesome, though, to see things like, lunar eclipses, for instance, which, in fact, tells you that it must have a different course from the sun, because at some point there's an overlapping. Oh, wait a minute. Does Enoch explain that mechanism? Next. We'll cover that in the next video. Don't worry. And then we'll end this portion of 1st Enoch in giving our response to another channel. Not necessarily directly. We're not even going to call them out by name, but we're going to explain the few attempted scriptures that they use, not understanding them, or as well the Sefer Bible they're following, who changed these passages or continued error that Charles fixed, and they didn't get it. Again, don't go yell at the Sefer either. Hey, look, we all make mistakes, but it can't be used as the authority on this because they got it wrong, indisputably. No, Enoch didn't do that. The Sefer Bible did, and they have Enoch going against Enoch, creating false statements. And you just can't do that. We'll show you those outright, and Enoch is right. We have almost 450 videos on this channel, one for every day of the year, many just as profound, with some 50 or so in Tagalog for Filipinos, and now 6 in Spanish to start. We also have been setting up subtitles for 20 plus languages for most of our videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe and click the bell for notifications of new uploads. Join our email list as YouTube fails to notify often, and we will notify you ourselves at thegodculture.com. Just fill in the pop-up there. We now have alternative platforms for videos on Rumble, Odyssey, and Utreon, and our new podcast is also available for all of our videos as well. All links in the description box. Friend us on Facebook at The God Culture, _space original. If you prefer an alternative, we now have Parler and Gab. Links below. We have 6 books published internationally, being read in over 100 countries, with a new release now available. The first book of Enoch, the oldest book in history, and we prove it right there in the introduction. Read it. We also have now launched Ophir Philippines Coffee Table Book in the US, Canada, UK, and many overseas markets on Amazon. And it's available in hardcover or softcover there. Additionally, we launched the Book of Jubilees, the Torah calendar, with color maps and interior, as so many had requested overseas. We already had that with color maps in the Philippines, but that too is available in hardcover or softcover, both in color or also in black and white, if you wish. All books, including Solomon's Treasure, are now free in eBook. Yes, folks, our content is free. And don't forget, the Book of Enoch, First Enoch, is also available in hardcover color, softcover color, and black and white color on Amazon. But in the Philippines, it's just black and white. That's all we can offer at this time. Just go to ophirinstitute.com for all the links for your area for all of our books. More coming soon. Thank you for watching. Now, always remember, prove all things for yourself. Yah bless to everyone.